The addition of Nick Scorton was the biggest offseason moment for the Texas A&M Aggies.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on in to Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. Hope everybody is having an outstanding Friday. The weekend is almost here, ladies and gentlemen. And today, I want to talk a little bit about the biggest offseason moments for the Aggies. So listen, you got to hear me out, my reasoning on some of this stuff. Obviously, I did not have the hiring of Coach Elko just because it's kind of a no-brainer. I wanted to go some other directions with this episode. But we got the 10 biggest moments of the offseason for the Aggies. And once again, as I said, when I got this thing rocking and rolling, the number one moment was the addition of Nick Scorton. You know, I talk about how to use the transfer portal correctly all the time here on this show. And, you know, the transfer portal is something, sometimes you use the portal to add veterans, to add depth, or guys that are going to be stars, or young guys with high upside. And then there's those guys, those diamonds in the rough, those players who can come in and just be absolutely elite, the top end guys in the portal. And you want to land some of those guys. The Aggies did that, bringing in Nick Scorton, a guy who had double-digit sacks at Purdue in the Big Ten. We're not talking about at some random school. We are talking about a Big Ten school. Double-digit sacks. You know, and Nick Scorton comes, and as y'all know, y'all every day as you're at Locked On Aggies know, I wake up every day and smile because Nick Scorton plays for my football team, not anybody else's. And that, I mean, seriously, like as much as I joke about how awesome it is to have Nick Scorton, it's not a joke. He is so good that he can really elevate a team, elevate a program. And, you know, I think there's a world where he's one of the best defenders in all of college football, not just the SEC, in all of college football. He's that good. I think he's going to have an absolutely monster season. I wouldn't be shocked to see him repeat getting double-digit sacks. He's that good. So, you know, in these 10 moments I have here, some I might have higher, might have lower. Y'all might think of one I didn't have, think one should be lower, one should be higher, whatever. But I think it's hard to find a moment quite like the addition of Nick Scorton. The only one that I think can really combat it is holding on to Terry Bussey. I mean, I remember the day that he was making, you know, he was signing and making his official, here's what I'm doing, despite being committed to Texas A&M. I mean, I woke up and I was shaking. I was like, oh man, Terry, please don't do it to us. Don't do it to us. Stay home. Don't go anywhere else. And, you know, leading into that decision, I talked about how if Coach Elko is going to succeed at Texas A&M, he has got to get these players. He's got to get the elite players. You just have to. You can't skate by. You know, you have to be able to get these type of guys. And Terry Bussey is a type of guy who can lead to wins. I mean, he's that good. I've talked about how, I mean, I really do believe that he is going to be an NFL guy. I think he's that good. And, you know, LSU was making a push. Some other schools were making a push. And it was, come on, Coach Elko, hold on. This kid's too good. You can't lose him. You have got to hold on to this guy. And, of course, he does. And now you have a freshman coming in who can help you in the return game, can help you on offense a little bit, and really can help you playing corner. You know, I mean, because Terry Bussey, I mean, he's a 5-star, but he feels like a different type of 5-star. He feels like a guy not only who I think is going to make an immediate impact, but make the type of impact that can lead to wins. Now, is it lead to wins this season? I'm not sold there, but next year, I mean, he's a guy, he can have, I mean, pick sixes. He's so elite with the football in his hands, which is why he's valuable in the return game, why he's valuable as a gadget guy on offense. And hey, he gets an interception. Good luck tackling him because he is shifty. He's quick. He's just a weapon. And the belief in Coach Elko when he held on to Terry Bussey for me, I mean, it just, while it was already increasing day by day, that really just continued to really drive home for me. Coach Elko is going to succeed. So that's my number 2 moment. It's holding on to Terry Bussey. And listen, I think those 2 moments are really, really similar. I think that you could flip-flop those and be fine either which way. The next thing I have is the hiring of Colin Klein. So I just think Colin Klein is going to be an incredible offensive coordinator. The numbers I ran through last year had that show, or I ran through from last year, had a show less than a month ago where I talked about the Klein effect. It's a real thing. What he did last year for Kansas State, those numbers, when they got to the red zone, they were scoring touchdowns. They weren't kicking field goals. They were converting on third downs. They were picking up good yardage on first down. He had an absolute dominant offense last year. And while, yes, he had some good players and that played a role in it, I think it's who he is as a coach that really made the difference. I think that, and I've said it, and I will continue to say it because I really do believe this. I think enjoy Colin Klein right now because I think he's got head coach, coming soon. He's that good of a coach. And, I look at him and I say, I think that he's going to be able to elevate this offense to a new level. He's just, his understanding of how to have balance, how to use the run game, how to use the tight end position. He's just such an incredible offensive mind. And I think you're going to see that play out this year. I think he's going to elevate the play of Connor Wigman, of these running backs, of the receivers, especially this tight end room. So what he's going to do for this offense and for this team is really unmatched. And that's why I think bringing in Colin Klein was one of the most significant offseason moments for this football team. So, yeah, I mean, he's going to be a star and he's going to be a head coach soon. So let's enjoy him now. The next thing I have, the number 4 thing, is the late additions to last year's recruiting class. So, when you bring in a new coach, you always see this. You see some players in your class leave. That stuff happens. You lose players to the portal. It's just the reality of a new coach coming in. Players, while they're coming to play for a university, they're also coming to play for a coach. And, Coach Elko did a really good job, partially while holding on to Bussey. That, of course, was part of it. But going to get guys that weren't previously committed. And, he went and got a handful of 4-star or receiver, a couple defensive linemen. He went and got some of those guys who could even have a role this year. So the value that brings is truly just unmatched. I think that landing those guys when he did, it proved to me, and if y'all remember from the coaching search, I said, if Coach Elko can recruit, he's going to succeed at Texas A&M. There were 0 questions in my mind on his ability to coach X's and O's, but you got to have the guys. And that was my concern. Okay, he was obviously a DC here. He's recruited in that capacity, but at Duke, you're just really not getting those super talented recruits. It's just reality of Duke football. But Coach Elko, and still to this day, has found a way to continue recruiting elite players. And it's the reason why I think that so many positive things are coming this way. I think we're going to see that this year. I think you're going to see some players from last year, taking a step to the next level this year. And you're going to go, man, what happened? Well, I think Coach Elko is a really good football coach, and I think he hired a really good staff, Coach Klein included, other members of the staff. That stuff matters. I think sometimes we get too fixated on players and stars and talent rather than, oh, yeah, you got to coach them up. And I think that Coach Elko is going to coach them up. I think that was part of the issue under Jimbo Fisher. He was an elite recruiter, and I just think that he kind of lost that aspect of it, the player development. Texas A&M, I think we could all argue that they weren't putting players at the next level like they should have been with all the talent. There was lots of arguments you could have made. I don't think that's going to be the issue anymore. So I believe that in those late additions to last year's recruiting class, Coach Elko proved, hey, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to recruit, and I'm going to recruit at a high level. And it was a real reason why I was bought into the Coach Elko tenure here at Texas A&M. The next thing I have, which we'll talk about coming up right here in a minute on Locked On Aggies, is the addition of Texas A&M's quarterback of the future in the 2025 class. We'll talk about why I think that was so important coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I got to tell you about our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. So the fifth biggest moment of the offseason for the Aggies, for me, was the addition of five-star quarterback Hassan Longstreet. Listen, when you were putting together a recruiting class, having an elite quarterback is huge. Not only did Coach Elko and his staff land an elite quarterback, they did it early into the process. This is really important. I think a lot of players want to, especially on the offense, receivers, running backs, tight ends, they want to know who the quarterback's going to be. Hey, who's going to be the quarterback in my class? When you wait a little bit to get your quarterback of the future, it can create problems. It can make it harder to land five-star, high four-star receivers, tight ends, or running backs. You've already gotten the job done. You've gotten your elite quarterback in this class. And while that's important, it's just another, attaboy for Coach Elko. He's landing five-star players. This is important. You have to, as important as it is for him to coach, you also got to have the guys. And he is continuing to prove that he can get them. And that is the reason why I think this is such an important offseason moment for the Aggies. So that was my fifth moment. Now, the sixth moment, this is a little, I would say, I'm not going to say controversial, but I don't know if many would agree. And maybe I'm reaching here, but I have College Game Day coming for the Notre Dame game to kick off the season. Listen, hosting College Game Day is a big deal. College Game Day is a show about creating excitement around the game that we all love, college football. Nothing in the world beats college football. Seriously, a Corona by the beach is pretty nice, but hey, I'm taking college football any day of the week. And, the reason that I think this is important, probably more important than I think some would argue, is just because it shows excitement around this program. There's definitely a lot of good week one games. Now, this is going to be a top 25 matchup. I get all that. But there's just something about College Game Day choosing to come to College Station for this game that means a lot to me. I think it shows excitement in the direction that Coach Elko is taking this program. And that is why I think it was one of the most significant moments of the offseason. Some might not agree. Some might not have this in the list. Maybe some have it, but lower than I do. I just think, and Coach Elko kind of said this, there's excitement around his program. And that, as a coach, is what you have to do. That's how you get NIL money. That's how you do everything you need to do recruiting. There's excitement around Texas A&M football, and this right here proves that to be a fact. The next thing I have is Des Ricks. So Des Ricks, a former super highly ranked guy in the portal. And, I had things I wanted checked off when it comes to, can Coach Elko succeed? One of those was recruiting positions of need in the portal. Whether Des Ricks ends up being an elite player, we never see him on the field, whatever it ends up being, I think the point here is this. Des Ricks was a coveted guy in the portal, a talented guy that everybody wanted. Alabama guy, highly ranked guy, Nick Saban recruit, and he picks to come play for Texas A&M. And I think he's a guy that's going to be really good. So I think what this proves is that you can land elite players in the portal, like we discussed with Nick Scorton, but also you can fill positions of need. There is nothing in the world more frustrating as a fan of a team than your program having a hole. Running back, receiver, offensive line, defensive end, linebacker, corner, whatever it is, whatever position it is. And the coaching staff just can't seem to go get a really good player at that spot. Coach Elko and company did that, filling up this cornerback room. The cornerback room was bad last year, and they fixed it with a bunch of transfers, the secondary as a whole. And that is just going to prove so valuable this season. It's why Texas A&M is going to have such an elite defense, which we will talk about here in a little bit. The next thing I have here is landing the corners so far in the 25 class. The 2, 3, and 4 ranked players in Texas A&M's class currently are all super highly ranked corners. And why is this important? Why? Well, same thing I kind of just argued about Rick's. It is important because Texas A&M had holes, and Coach Elko is fixing them via the portal, via the recruiting class. That is how you have a good program. When you have issues, you fix them. And that is what gets me so excited about the future of this position. Coach Elko, not only is he a defensive guy, but he's going to get really good recruits to play these positions. A position that was really bad last year was a reason that this team lost some football games. I always say that Miami game, if your secondary plays better, you can win that game. The offense showed up really well. The secondary lost you some football games this year, long touchdowns. That's just the reality. Hey, I'm not trying to knock anybody, but we all saw it. So I love the way that Coach Elko is filling holes for the now and filling holes for the future within this program, within this team. That is really exciting. The next thing I have is Tommy Moffitt, the addition of Texas A&M strength and conditioning coach. A lot of times injuries. Now, not all injuries, not the foot injury we saw Connor Wigman sustain or breaking your leg in half. You can't train for that. But soft tissue stuff, the muscle stuff, hamstrings, that stuff can be fixed. Not fixed, but that stuff, you can prevent those injuries by being well-conditioned, by stretching. And you can laugh at me. That's fine, but that's the reality. If you are in good physical shape, which obviously the players were in good physical shape last year, but taking that to the next level can prevent those hammies, calf injuries, whatever it is. This is how you prevent that stuff. That's why you win right now. Obviously, you want to win in September and October and November, but you can win in those months right now by training well. And Tommy Moffitt is an elite strength and conditioning coach. He's proven that time and time again. One of the best in the business, if not the best in the business. Coach Elko went and got him, and that is going to be a big reason why I think this team's going to stay healthier than they have in the past. My final biggest moment for the Aggies in the offseason was holding on to Chase Basantis. Basantis puts his name in the portal, was a freshman All-American. And, last year, was he great? Was he elite? No. But he was a freshman playing offensive line, playing tackle in the SEC. That's like one of the hardest things in the world to do, besides maybe become an astrophysicist. Like that's harder. But that is hard. Playing tackle, playing any offensive line position in the SEC as a freshman is near impossible. And sometimes the most significant additions in the portal are holding on to your guys. Basantis, he was planning, he had hit the portal, he was gone. But he comes back to Texas A&M. This is a huge get for Coach Elko. He's a player that can play on the offensive line maybe for 2 more years because he's going to be heading to the NFL draft. So I think that the little things like that sometimes are, well, you don't consider it because he was on the team last year. Look at it like this. in the transfer portal, he was a super high ranked offensive lineman. Look at it like, hey, we got a super highly ranked offensive lineman out of the portal. That's what it is. Holding on to guys is super valuable, and that is what the Aggies did, pulling back Chase Besantis. Those are my 10 biggest moments of the offseason for the Aggies. Let me know in the YouTube comments. Would you change? Would you rank one higher, one lower? Was there one that y'all have that I didn't have? Let me know those things in the YouTube comments. Last question of the week, ladies and gentlemen, and it's an interesting one. Could Texas A&M have a top 10 defense in all of college football? That's our conversation coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. Texas A&M is going to have a really good defense this season. And I don't believe it's crazy to say this defense could end up being one of the top 10 defenses of college football. I really don't. You know, you have the coaching. Coach Elko is an elite defensive coach. I like all of his hires, whether it's Coach Bateman, whatever it is on the defense. I like all of his hires defensively. And flat out, he's a good defensive coach. We know that. We know that from when he was at Texas A&M. So you have the coaches in place to do it. You have a defensive-minded head coach. All of these things are important. But on top of that, I just think at all three levels, on the defensive line, the linebackers, the secondary, your front seven for sure, this team is really, really good on the defensive side of the field. So, I look at this. You've got a young star in DJ Hicks. You got the Shamar's back, Shamar Stewart, Shamar Turner. You went and got Nick Scorton, who I sat and talked good about for a few minutes, and I wish I could talk longer about. Your defensive line is going to be dominant. You've got some sleepers. Some players could Malik Sia break out. You've got some players who could break out on the defensive line. This is a top to bottom elite room that has a lot of guys who are going to break onto the scene, a lot of guys who have already proven it, and a lot of guys who are going to continue to prove it. At linebacker, you go and get a couple of transfers, Scooby, DeShields to pair with Terrion York, who I think will be one of the best linebackers in all of college football this year. York's going to be a monster. There's no debate to it. He's going to have a massive season. He's already a leader. We talk about it. He's already a captain as a sophomore, a true sophomore, second year in the program, and he's a captain of this team. I can't sit here and talk enough about that. Then in the secondary, once again, we've talked about it a little bit earlier in the show, you have issues at corner and safety, and you go and you add elite players in the transfer portal that are going to make this defense better. Secondary was the issue last year. What does Coach Elko go do? He fixed those issues via the high school recruiting class and via the transfer portal. So yeah, I really do see a world where this Texas A&M defense is one of the best in all of college football. And then the last question is, if that ends up happening, how many football games can you win? I think if you have a top 10 defense in college football, this team wins 9 games. End of story. Once again, we've talked about the path to that, winning one at home against those good teams, taking care of business on the road. If you have a top 10 defense in college football, I think this team wins 9 games. Simple as that. They're going to have the pass rush. They're going to have the run stop. The front seven is going to be one of the best in college football. If the secondary is as good as I think it's going to be when it comes to taking a leap forward from what we saw last year, this can be a top 10 defense in college football, knowing the coaching staff you have helping this team get better. So yeah, if this, my final statement of the week, if this defense is top 10 in college football, the Aggies win 9 football games. Simple as that. That's going to do it for this week here at Locked On Aggies. Heading to the lake this weekend. Excited about that. It's going to be a ton of fun. Nothing beats being at the lake. Looking forward to it. But what am I going to be watching at the lake? It's a very, very simple thing. The Aggies play the Oregon Ducks in their Super Regional. 2 wins away from a trip back to Omaha. I am so excited, ladies and gentlemen. I want to go to Omaha so bad. I'm planning to go if the Aggies make it. But that's the tentative plan right now. But hey, let's get there first. I'm so excited about this weekend. I know all of y'all are as well. Whatever happens this weekend, good or bad, we'll break it down next week at Locked On Aggies. But support this team, show out, get to the ballpark. This team needs us. This team needs y'all. Let's make it happen. Hope everybody has an outstanding rest of their Friday, an outstanding weekend. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't already, keep hitting that subscribe button. We're almost at 1,900 subscribers, so I really appreciate that. Hope everybody has an outstanding weekend, and we will see you on Monday.